Okay, good morning everybody, and Hazaku Baruch, thank you for joining us on this beautiful Monday morning as we are studying together a new week, a new perashah, actually two perashiot this week. We have a double header, Vayakhel, Pekudei. Vayakhel and Pekudei as we wrap up the second of 5 books of the Torah, the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus. So we are wrapping it up this week with a double header, Vayakhel and Pekudei. Vayakhel, let's talk today a little bit about the first perashah, Vayakhel. Vayakhel means to gather. Parasha begins, Vayakhel Moshe et kol adad bnei Israel vayomer alehem ele hadevarim asher tzava Adonai la'asot otam. Moshe gathers all the Jewish people and he says to them, the following are the things that God commanded. Okay, so Moshe is about to command what we studied for the last few weeks. That was all God telling Moshe on Har Sinai. We don't realize that. The idea of terumah, building a mishkan, and the materials needed. All the things that we spoke about for the last few weeks. The Jewish people weren't privy to that information yet. They didn't hear it. It was God telling Moshe. If you paid attention, it says God told Moshe on Har Sinai to build a mishkan, to collect these materials. Kohen Gadol, Mizbeach, etc. But the Jewish people, they have no idea about it. Moshe is still on the mountain. He goes up to get the Torah and God gives him the Torah plus all of this stuff, all of these laws, the idea of building a house of God. So he still didn't relay it to them. So now it's the relay. Now he comes and he gathers them, Vayakhel Moshe, and he gives over to all the people everything that he heard from God over the last 40 days. Now, he tells them about Shabbat, he tells them about the Mishkan. This is the first that they are hearing of it. It's not the first that we're hearing of it. We read it last week. We read it a week before. Actually, Rabbi Ariel says it's going to be written a total of 5 times. Okay, look how much the Torah goes out of its way to show you the building of the Mishkan, how beloved it was to Hashem. It tells it to you and repeats it to you 5 times. 5 times. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nivaro. But either way, this is the first that the people are hearing about it. And what day? What is the date that they're hearing about it? What is this day? Moshe gathers them. What is the day of the year? The date is, Rashi tells us, Vayakhel Moshe. Let's open Rashi. Vayakhel Moshe lemahorat Yom HaKippurim. This is the day after Yom Kippur, Ksheyarad min Ahar. When he comes down from the mountain, he comes down the day after Yom Kippur and he starts giving us all of this information. Vayakhel Moshe. So what date does this take place? Motza'e Yom Kippur. Okay? Now again, just to put it in context, this is roughly 6 months after we left Egypt. We left Egypt, we got to Har Sinai, we got the Torah, we did Chet HaEgel, Moshe goes up to ask forgiveness, he comes down Yom Kippur, or Motza'e Yom Kippur rather, and he now hands us the whole Torah and all the laws of the Mishkan. So this is 6 months after we left Egypt. So a lot's going on over the last 6 months, right? A lot of things happened. We got to Har Sinai, the splitting of the sea, the sin of the golden calf, and the laws of the building of the Mishkan. Okay, so this is where our parasha begins. And now let's turn to Rabbi Ariel. We know, of course, he begins every parasha with a beautiful pasuk, introduction with a pasuk from Mishle. So here is the pasuk in Mishle. The pasuk says, Echol beni devash ki tov. Pasuk in chapter 24. Eat, my son, honey, for it is good. Venofet matok al hikecha, let its sweet drops be on your palate. Okay, hech, your palate, in your mouth. So eat honey is basically what he's telling you. Okay, is that really what I need Shlomo HaMelech to tell me, to eat honey? He says, no. The next pasuk is the main part. Know that such is the wisdom for your soul. The same way honey is good for your mouth, wisdom, chokhmah lenafshecha, is good for your soul. Im matzata veyesh aharit, if you attain it, there is a future. V'tikvatcha lo tikaret, your hope will not be cut off. So over here, Shlomo HaMelech is telling you that the same way your mouth likes honey, so too your mind, your soul likes wisdom. Okay, so let's see now Rabbeinu Bahya. He says, Shlomo HaMelech alav hashalom, King Solomon, may he rest in peace, Himshil chokhmah shehi ta'anug sichli ledvash. Here he is comparing wisdom to honey. Wisdom to honey, which is a physical delight. So he's comparing a spiritual delight to a physical delight. Very important today what we're going to read together, okay? I need you to sit back and to really pay attention on this one, because he's going to teach you very important rules of life over here. Hu tamid noheg berov dvarav. This is usually the way of King Solomon and in all of his books. Besefer Mishle, especially in the book of Mishle. Ledaber al yedeh meshalim. To speak through meshalim. What does that mean, meshalim? Parables. Shlomo HaMelech constantly speaks in parable. He says, you should do this just like that. Always giving a parable. As a teacher, many times when I'm talking to the students, I'm talking about something in the Gemara. The kids don't understand it, so I have to talk in parable. I have to give them an analogy, a metaphor in sports. And then I explain it in sports. They say, okay, now I get it. And then I bring it back to the Gemara. Shlomo HaMelech always does that when it comes to spiritual matters. He first connects it and compares it to something. He relates it to something natural, something physical. Yazhira Adam sheyochiach sichlo letevo. He has to relate the mind to the body. Lefisha Adam kalul mishne dvarim. Man is made up of two parts: sechel veteva, the mind, the soul, and his nature, his physical part. We are interesting combination of body and soul. Really, the truth is that we're the only creation in all of the universe that's like that. That's like that, is mankind. Animals are body, angels are soul, and we are this mixture, this synthesis of body and soul. There's no way to really prove something to a person's mind unless he first gives it a relatable analogy. Something that we could understand and see, that our nature is involved in. And he explains, there are 4 elements in this world. Right? We know, yes, that the terrestrial world is comprised of 4 distinct categories. Okay, 4 categories. What are the 4 categories? Anyone know? Domem, Tzomeach, Chai, Medaber. We're going to move quickly today because there's a lot that he speaks about. Domem, Hem HaHarim. Domem is the first category, is the inanimate objects. Mountains, valleys, dirt, right? En lahelek hazeh nefesh klal. It doesn't, lo tzomachat, lo nefesh atenuah. It doesn't move, it doesn't grow, it doesn't think, right? Right? That's the inanimate objects. Okay? Lemala memeno, above it, tzomeach, is things that sprout, like plants, right? Yesh lo yitron, its advantage over the mountains, over the earth, is that it can move, it can sprout, right? It evolves. Lemala min hatzomeach, above the plants, is ba'alei hayim, animals that can move. Yesh lahem nefesh hatenuah, okay? So they don't only grow, but they also move. And lemala ba'alei hayim, the 4th category above animals, is ha'adam, men. Shehu kolel et kulam, because we can move, we can sprout, and we also can talk. Okay, our advantage over animals is the fact that we can talk, and really it's the fact that we have called a nefesh sichli, the fact that we are intellectual, the fact that we can think. Okay, the fact that a person has the ability to have a temptation and think and say, is this good for me in the long run? That is the advantage of man over animal. And by the way, you find you find that the order of creation is actually in the order that we just listed. Domem, first, is land. That's created on day 3. God moved all the water and there was land. Then there was tzomeach, then there was vegetation, right? Trees grew, sprouted. Then there was on day 5, the animals, the birds, the fish, right? And finally on day 6 was man. So you see the order of creation of the world is through the 4 categories in ascending order. He says it's opposite from the order of the other four categories that exist in the upper realms. In the upper realms, it was created from up down. First, it was light, which is the highest. Then it was Rakia, the heavens. Then it was the sun and the moon. Okay, so that's in descending order. But when it comes to the lower realm, it's in ascending order. Again, first there was land, then there was the plants, then there was the animals, then man was created on the last day. Lefisha Adam, and he continues and says, and because man meshutaf im hatzomeach benefesh hatzomeach ve'im behema benefesh hatenuah, man has inside of him, we are comprised of a moving, like animals, sprouting, like vegetation, but we also have a soul. לכך הוא צריך להיות לו נפש שכלית להחכימו ולהורות אותו דרך השכל כדי שיתגבר שכרו על טבעו. Life, my friends, comes down to the battle between what the body wants, the animalistic part of you wants, versus the mind that tells you to not necessarily follow your instincts. All of life is this tug of war between the behemah of you, the animal of you, and the soul of you. The animal of you wants to do things that are convenient for the body, things that are convenient for the animal. The soul tells you, think. The mind says, I don't know if that's the right thing. And he explains very, very in depth over here. Just like the tzomeach is advantage over the inanimate objects. He says the pasuk, he quotes over here pasuk from Iyov, Milifnu behemot aretz, umeof ashamayim yihkamnu. What does that mean? He says, Im ha'yitron hazeh shehu ha'sechel, yibhan erech ha'sechel ve'erech ha'teva, kol ehad mehem be'eze madrega hu. Okay? Based on how much a person allows his intellect, his mind, to overpower his instincts, his nature, his body. This is really what life comes down to. When a person allows his soul, his mind, to overpower, to guide his body, he compared to an angel of God. But if a person follows his instincts, if a person allows his drives to dictate what his life looks like over your mind, then he becomes nothing more than animal. Nimshal kabehemot. He's like a regular animal. All of life, and this is really Tehillim even. David HaMelech says, Al tehiyu kesus kefered. Don't be like a horse. Don't be like a mule. Animals, they can't think. They just do. An animal wants to eat, it eats. An animal doesn't think, is this going to be good for me or bad for me? An animal doesn't think, is this going to, in the long run, hurt me or not? Is it going to hurt my relationship? It doesn't think about these things. Animals are just, they have their instincts and they live on their initial instincts. If we are going to do whatever our instincts tell us, we are no different than animal. If a person has a feeling that they want to punch someone and they go ahead and punch them, then you're no different than an animal. If you have a feeling that you want to just embarrass someone and you go ahead and embarrass them, you're no different than an animal. The advantage that we have over animals is the fact that we have the ability to not embarrass, to not punch, to not hurt, to be kind, to be giving, to be generous, to think about the consequences of our actions. The advantage that we have over animals is that we have a sechel and that we could calculate long-term consequences. That's not something that animals can do. Animals cannot calculate. Animals don't think ahead. The only thing that we have is that we can think a step ahead. What makes you a person, what makes you a human and not just an animal, is the fact that you have a desire and you think about it and you say, you know what? This desire, this pleasure is going to be bad for me. This pleasure is going to actually hurt my relationship. I'm not going to do this. It's going to ruin someone's life. King Solomon, throughout the book of Mishleh, reminds us of the benefit of thinking and the harm of following our nature. If you think about it, the body is lazy from finding food or drink or clothing or shelter. These are things that the body really needs. But the mind comes and says, hello, you got to eat. You don't eat, you're gonna die. If you don't drink, you're gonna die. If you don't get dressed, you're gonna be nude. If you don't get a house, you're gonna be cold, you're gonna be hot. What forces you to eat? It's your mind. Your body is lazy. It's the mind that drives a person. Look at this pasuk over here. Lo yeherach remiya tzido. The pasuk says, a negligent person never has game to roast. Okay? Game over here means if you hunt birds. Usually people that hunt animals, they hunt birds, they burn their feathers, their wings, so that they don't fly away. But if you're negligent, then he's going to trap a bird, but he forgets to remove the wings, so the bird's going to fly away. He says, Hon Adam Yakar Harut, a diligent man has precious wealth. So what does that mean over here? Look at this, he explains. Be'uro, ish remiya lo yitkayem be'ado mamono. A person who is negligent will not have money. Because like we just explained, the way of a hunter is to remove the wings, so that the bird doesn't fly away. So Shlomo HaMelech is saying, Ki hagonev, a person steals, ve'olei be'tzedo, lo yagia laharuch, ki yivrach mimenu, ha'of terem she'yaharuch. Ve'hu mashal mekabetz mamon. This is over here again a parable Shlomo HaMelech is telling you. The same way a person who's negligent will not succeed in keeping his game, so too a person who steals. A person who steals, Shlomo HaMelech is relating it to something physical. Always he's relating spiritual to physical, because physical is something that you get. It's something that we understand. It's something that you see clearly. The mind understands that if you're negligent, you're not going to hold on to the bird. So he has to compare spiritual to physical. So he says a person who steals, he thinks he's holding on to his game, lo yatzliach, he's not going to end up succeeding. Yaharoch, he says, ultimately what's going to remain with a person is when he's diligent. Stealing, getting a quick few bucks by taking advantage of somebody is not going to stay in your hands. The same way a negligent person doesn't end up keeping the fowl that he hunts. Your nature wants you, as an example, to steal, or to take advantage, or to abuse. Whatever the reason is, you have a desire to take advantage, to steal. These are things that you naturally want to do. But your mind, your mind says, hello, don't do that. It shows you in the end, it's going to lead only to your embarrassment. It's going to lead to hurting you. It's going to hurt you in this world, and it's going to hurt you in the next. Again, but that doesn't come naturally. That requires thinking. The pasuk says again, another example. Arav leish lechem shaker. False bread is sweet to a person, right? Sick to steal, feels good to take something that's not yours. However, achad yemaleh piu hatzatz. But in the end, your mouth is going to be filled with gravel. Look at this beautiful, the whole book. He's just giving you example after example. How in the beginning you think it's going to benefit you, but later on it's only going to hurt you. You think you caught a bird, but it flies away. You think you have sweet bread, but in the end your mouth only has gravel. Hateva mevakesh hasimcha. Your nature wants just pleasure, schok, laughter, mishgal, intimacy. Because you have a drive. You have what we call the id, or the libido. God implanted in a person what we call the animal instincts, right? So you're fulfilling a drive. There's a certain temporary pleasure that exists. However, but the mind, the mind tells you, but look at the future. Look down the line. Think a few steps ahead. This sweet item that is so in your mind tempting, down the line, it's going to be bitter. It's going to hurt you. You're going to be throwing up from it. That's another example he quotes over here, another pasuk. Nofet tofta siftei zara. Look at this pasuk over here. The mouth drips when it's you're drooling over something that's foreign. V'chelek mishemen cheka, v'chalak mishemen cheka. He's talking about over here a woman that's not permitted to you. So your mouth drools over her, and her skin, her palate is smoother than oil, right? In the beginning, you're tempted, you're running after her. However, aharita mara kila'ana. King Solomon says, but you know what happens at the end? It's more bitter than wormwood. Hada keheref piyot. It's a double-edged sword. Hada, what does it mean, double-edged sword? You think in the beginning you're running after something that's good for you. But how many times people realize that their marriages are ruined, their relationships are ruined, this person that they thought was so sweet, they're disgusted from them, they're bitter, they're poison, they can't stand them anymore. It's a double-edged sword at the end. At the end, what are you left with? You're left with the failure that you have. You're left with this disgrace that you feel like you are because you couldn't even pass this small test that was given to you. And all you have is this double-edged sword. You have bitterness in this world. You have bitterness in the next world. Now even animals have what we call survival instincts. When an animal sees fire, it runs away. It sees it sees water, it stays away from deep water. It's dangerous. If you hear something dangerous, you run away from that noise. That's natural. Right? There are natural instincts, the human survival instincts. So what the mind is supposed to do is tell your nature. So too, if you see something that's ra'ah, bad, the same way if you hear something dangerous, your body knows, run away from it. So too, when you hear gossip, your mind tells your body, run away from it. The same way if you see fire, your body knows, run away from it. So too, your mind tells your body, if you see a woman that's dangerous, run away from her. She's like fire. If you see something that's not healthy for you, that's not healthy for your relationship, stay far away. Your mind speaks to your body in the body language. The body needs to first understand danger. And Shlomo HaMelech, that's why King Solomon, all of the book of Mishlei is filled with examples like this. He brings proofs. He brings proof from your nature, from the way of the world. Because you do run away from fire. You do run away from a pit of water. And Al-Ken Yazir Shlomo Tamid, therefore King Solomon constantly warns Al ha'inyanim ha'sechliyim ve'yisa lehem mashal b'mashalim hativim. The book of Proverbs, that's why it's called Mishlei. This is called Mishlei because the whole book is about giving you an analogy, something that you understand naturally, and now let's compare that to something that your mind understands but your body does not. Life is constantly a battle between your body and your mind. Your body wants to do things that are good for it in the temporary short run, and your mind says, but it's not good for you in the long run. Habitahon, he gives you another example. Bitahon, trusting in God. Trusting in God is not something that's natural. That's something that your mind understands. But in order to make it understandable for your mind, King Solomon has to first give you an example to something that you naturally understand. So he gives you an example. The Pasuk says, Migdal Oz Shem Adonai Bo Yarutz Sadiq V'Nizgav. That the name of God is like a tower of fortress that you run away to and you're protected. You see, he has to give you an example to an analogy of something that makes sense. Because naturally, when you're afraid, what do? You run to a big tower. You run up high, away from robbers, away from the enemy, away from people that are trying to kill you. And you think that you're going to be safe up there. And just like V'keshem, just like your mind, your nature. Just like your nature understands that a tower is protection, is safety. So too a person needs to know that when you trust in God, it's like going into a tower. I can't just tell you, trust in God. I have to give you an analogy. What is it like? What's it comparable to? Something in your language that you understand. You understand, the Torah says, as people, we understand our animal Our nature understands fortress, tower. So I have to compare bitachon to a tower. Now I tell you, when you trust in God, it's like being safe in a big tower. Just like in a tower you run to, then oh wow, Rabbi, nice analogy. Always, I find the most powerful way of relaying a message, of an idea, is through an analogy. Why is an analogy so powerful? Because now I brought down a concept that's spiritual and I related it to something that's physical, something that you naturally understand, something that makes sense. You can't argue on sense, you can't argue on logic, you can't argue on something that's natural. Just like your body understands, your nature understands always, so too, so too, bitachon in Hashem is protection, it's safety. Not only that, but it's even more. You're safe in a tower. You know, when you're in a tower, you're not necessarily safe, right? But Migdal, maybe the enemy could come in, they could burn it down. But when you have a bitachon is protection, and you're guaranteed safety in there. Bo yarut sadik venisgav. You're protected no matter what. And another example, libo shel melech beyad hakadosh baruch hu nimshal lepalge mayim. Right? The heart of a king is compared to the water. The water, it's channeled, it's directed. There's a certain way the water has to go. When you see water coming out of a waterfall, it has to go this way, it has to go that way, it has to turn here. So too the heart of a king. It's another pasuk in Mishleh. The heart of a king, God directs the heart of the king whichever way he wants. Another example, when it comes to theft. He compares theft to birds that try to come and eat from a trap. They see grains, say, oh, yummy, I want to eat grains. They come in, they try to eat some of the grains, but they don't realize it's a trap. You're going to get caught forever. You're stuck in this trap. What are you doing? You're getting a quick piece of grain, but you're going to be caught. Ken hagozel, so too a person who steals. This desire for money. Why are you stealing money? You're stealing most of the time, right? It's because the person desires money. It's like the bird flying to get a piece of grain from the trap. You think you're getting food, but you're gonna get caught. Gezel, it brings a person to his downfall, and therefore he says, "Hinam mezurah hareshet be'enei kol ba'al kanaf." Again, many psukim over here, of again comparing sin, things that are spiritual, to natural things. Bechet haznut, a person who is immoral, person who does immorality, infidelity. He says, it's like falling down a very big pit, right? Okay? Each thing has its own mashal that you understand. When you understand the physical, you understand that deeper idea. Eshet ish, each one. Okay, fine. Let's move on to the next. He just gives a few more examples. Okay. Okay, and what's his point? All of this, all of this is really to allow you to appreciate what the mind understands, to relate it to something that the body understands. Because the truth is they're very far apart. The mind and the body. The soul and the goof. There's a big difference, like light and dark, night and day. And therefore, right, your body only understands instant. Right? Your body sees something sugary. It thinks gratification. Now, I want it. Your body doesn't think later. What about the fact that it's going to give me diabetes, or the fact that it's going to hurt my system? Right? You see alcohol, you see drugs. These are things that your body wants now. It looks good now, but you don't think. The advantage that we have as people is the fact that we can think. The fact that we could take a step ahead. That's what the sechel's job is. The teva, the nature, doesn't do that. The body looks at instant. It doesn't look at the future. It gives you an example. If you have a piece of wheat, take a kernel, okay? Little kernel of wheat. What do you do with it? You take it and you put it in the ground and you plant it. He says, Kamahu haser be'enei hateva. Naturally, that makes no sense. Why, if a person didn't think, why would you take this piece of wheat and throw it away in the garbage? Why are you burying it? Right? Utomna bekarka, umashhitota, you're destroying it. The teva, the body, hayarotze le'ochla, wants to eat it. You don't want to dirty it in the dirt, put it underground. Body wants to eat the wheat. So why do you plant? Why do you plant? Hasechel, because your mind tells you, hello, fool, if you eat the wheat now, it's gone forever. If you take the wheat, you put it in the ground, water it, wait 6 months, you'll have not one wheat, you'll have 1,000,000 wheats. This one could get you much more later. They did this study. They took kids, they put them in a room with a lollipop on the table. They said, if you have the lollipop, you take it now, you have it, enjoy it. If you wait 5 minutes, we'll give you 2 lollipops. And you see these kids in the room. For 5 seconds, they're looking at it, they're debating, should they eat the lollipop? They're not sure. And most of the times, the kids, they can't control themselves. They end up taking the lollipop and eating it. Why? Because they want instant gratification. They want now to enjoy it. Really, that's the body. The body wants now. All of life, all of the mind is telling the body, wait. Have it now in a wrong way, or you could wait and have it in a permissible way. You could wait and have more. You could have 1 wheat now, or you could plant that wheat and wait, and that wheat will turn into 1,000,000. All of life is the mind telling the body to wait. The mind saying, not now. The mind telling the body to think about long term versus short term. Okay? This is such a powerful idea, really. It's all of life. All of life comes down to this. And that's why the Torah goes story after story. It teaches you about the tzaddikim. All of the tzaddikim came down to one thing. Tzaddikim were able to wait. They were able to use their mind over matter. Their soul over their body. They were able to think. The Reshaim were the opposite. The Reshaim thought about right now. What do I want now? Look at the Dor HaMabul, the generation of the flood. Right? They were destroyed. Why? Because they wanted instant. They never controlled their thoughts, their instincts. Noah was the only guy that was able to think a little bit ahead. To say, you know what? Maybe now it's okay, but later on, what's it going to do? It's going to hurt me. I can't. I have to limit my animal. The animal in us. The animal in us. All of life comes down to the battle between your soul and your animal. That's all of life. Esav, think about Esav. Esav says, Hal'iteni na min ha'adom hazeh. Esav says, give me from this red item. Now, I don't know if you ever had lentils. Lentils are not red. What are lentils? Lentils are brown. Why does he call them red? Not only that, but he says, Haliteni na, feed me please. Since when does Esav say please? Na, please? But the answer is, Haliteni na. Na doesn't mean please always. Na could also mean, anyone know what na means? Na means raw. Right? Raw. Like we find by Korban Pesach. Al tochelu mimenu na. Don't eat it raw. In Arabic we say kibe naye. Right? Na. Na means raw. You could have raw food. So Esav says, Haliteni na, give me raw. I want it now. You see, that's Esav's problem. He wanted instant. He wanted now. Haliteni na, give me now. From the red lentils. Lentils are red when they're raw. I don't want to wait till later on, till it's cooked. Esav doesn't have patience. All of the Reshaim, right? All of the Reshaim, that's really their problem. They go after the animal. They go after the drives. Now, whatever I want now, give it to me now. I don't care about later. I don't care what it's going to do to my marriage. I don't care what it's going to do to my relationship. I don't care what it's going to do to my soul. I don't care what it's going to do to my habits. I don't care what it's going to do to my instinct. I don't care how it's going to affect me. I don't care about my future, about my college, about my work. I don't care how it's going to affect my career. I just care about now. Hateva boher, the nature picks things that are bad. Ledabar kezavim v'lashon hara, gossip. Right, gossip, what's gossip? Right now, it's juicy. He's sick. Let me hear, what's the latest? Give me the goods. Give me the hak. It likes rest. It likes laziness. It likes selfish. It doesn't want to think about giving. It doesn't like to think about limiting food. It's all about what's yummy for my palate. Right? It doesn't want to work hard. That's the body. The sechel is why we get up for work. Because our mind tells us that you need to work. It makes sense to work. Not today, but it makes sense in the long run. A person needs to think about the future. Okay? This is what the sechel's job is. Another example. A person gives money. Lo yahsar mamono. We think by giving charity you're losing money? No. Noten larash en mahsor. When you give, you're not losing. You're actually gaining. When a person gives, they're only gaining. The money that you give, that's money that you'll never lose for the rest of your life. Right? These are all things that a person wouldn't think immediately. But if you follow if you follow your body, if you follow your instincts, a person will lose in life. He has to allow his mind to control his feelings. Yes? We spoke about this in the past. We said that in the language of Kabbalah, there are 10 sfirot. There are the 3 intellectual sfirot, and there's the 7 emotional sfirot. And in life, if you're going to allow your emotions to dictate what you do, you're going to lose. Life is about allowing our intellect to guide our emotions, to guide our feelings. Today, we live in a world that it's all about the emotions. It's all about how you feel. You feel like you want to do this, then do it. You want to that, but imagine you lived in a world that all you did is how you felt. If I feel like I want to punch you, I can punch you. What kind of world would that be? If I feel like I should do this, I should just do that. Right? What kind of world would that be? There would be no order. A successful life is about allowing the mind, the sechel, to dictate to the feelings what to do. You feel like you don't want to help that person, but you should help them. That's what the mind is. The Torah is really that voice, that conscious. The Torah is that voice in our minds telling us what to do even when our feelings are not necessarily there. The next time you don't want to do something, if you follow that feeling, that's you following your animal. That's you just nothing more than a dog. What makes you better than a dog is the fact that you think and the fact that you say, you know what, really maybe I don't want to, but what's the right thing to do? My mind tells me that the right thing is to help. The right thing is not to get revenge. The right thing is to forgive. The right thing is to think past myself. The right thing is to not necessarily say something. The right thing is to not necessarily eat something just because I want to eat it. Or else I'm a dog, or else I'm an animal, or else I'm a horse. Don't be like a horse, he says. Don't be like a horse. Don't be like an animal. If you just give in, you follow your drive, you're an animal. What makes us better than animal is the fact that we can think. Now, he compares now let's go our pasuk. Himshila chokhmah lidvash. He's comparing wisdom to honey. Velo l'shar hamatamim, not to anything else. Hatam bazeh, the reason is lefi shechush hatam margish hamitikut v'advash hu mimezeg hakeva. Because he says, naturally you understand honey. Your tongue, your palate appreciates honey. It's something that is good for your palate. It's good for your kaved, for your liver. It's easily absorbed. Therefore, you naturally desire honey. Just like your body desires honey. Look what he says. So too he compares wisdom to dvash, to honey. Just like your body just like your body naturally craves honey. So too realize Your soul craves wisdom. Just like your body craves honey, your soul craves wisdom. And not only that, but it's better than honey. Because honey will only benefit you in this world. But wisdom, chokhmah, will benefit you in this world. It will benefit you in the next world. And he says, and let's wrap it up because we're late today, so let's wrap it up. He says, we find when God gave the Torah, Vayakhel et ha-Elohim. It says that the Jewish people saw God, Vayochlu vayishtu. Look at this, very deep over here. It says they saw God and they ate. What does it mean they ate? You see God and now you have a shawarma? He says, Himshil ta'anu g're'iyat penei shechina. No, the Torah is giving you a metaphor. That when they saw the Shekhinah, hi achila ruhanit. It's like they ate. It's like the same way you physically eat, you're full. So they saw God. There was a certain satiation that existed by seeing God. You can't explain it in spiritual terms. You have to explain it in physical terms. Even Olam Haba. Olam Haba, what's your vision of Olam Haba? It's, our rabbis compare, it's like a big meal, it's a seudah, it's a yummy big fish, right? But all of that is a mashal, because that's what your body understands. It understands fish, it understands eating, it understands a nice meal. So we explain Olam Haba in relative to terminology that your body understands. But of course, Olam Haba is much greater than a nice, filet mignon. We use filet mignon because that's what the language that your body understands. That's what the Torah says, that the Jewish people, when they saw Hashem, it's like they ate. The same feeling that you get after a sick meal. You've had a sick meal. Wow, oh my God, right? You're like in heaven. That's the feeling that they had. As much as I could explain it to you in physical terms of what it feels like to see God spiritually. Moshe went to Har Sinai 40 days without eating or drinking. How? Because his soul was being fed. His soul was being fed so much that it didn't need to feed his body. You know what it's like if a person gets intravenous. You're not eating with your mouth, but it's enough because you're getting fed other ways. Moshe Rabbeinu was being over here fed through the soul. When your soul eats, your body doesn't need to eat. Now again, me and you, we're not on that level. But Moshe was on that level. Not only that, but Zacha bo kuf chaf yom. That lasted for 120 days. 120 days, not 40, 120. Because he went up on the 6th of Sivan. And if you do the math, he went up for 40 days. And then he came down, he saw Chet HaEgel. He went up for another 40 days to apologize. And then finally God says, okay, come up for the last 40. And he went up for the final 40 days. And Amad Sham 40 Yom. Shlishiyim, lekabel luchot shniyot. Vehem kalim beyom kippur. And that finished on Yom Kippur. I already explained it last week. That the day that he came down was the day of forgiveness. And when he went up, it was the day of Rosh Chodesh Elul. So Moshe went up on Rosh Chodesh Elul, and he comes down on Yom Kippur. Interesting, because those are the 40 days of Slichot, that we as Jews apologize, that we do Slichot. From Rosh Chodesh Elul to Yom Kippur, we get our cue from Moshe Rabbeinu. And not only that, but what was the day of the week of Rosh Chodesh Elul when Moshe went up for the final 40 days? He says, Yom Sheni Haya, it was a Monday. V'ksheyarad, when he came down, Yom Kippur was a Thursday. That's why our rabbis instituted Monday and Thursdays as a day of judgment. When Beit Din is open, those are also the days that in Shul we say Tahanun, a longer Vidui. Why? Because those are the days that Moshe went up and came down. So those are 2 days that are, I guess, better for Teshuvah. Those are days of apology. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu, he comes down Yom Kippur, and that's when he gathered the people. But again, this is again just an intro to our parasha. But you see over here, what an important Rabbeinu Bahye. He's walking us through. First of all, now you understand the parables of Mishleh. Why Shlomo HaMelech is always giving parables. Because he has to equate something that your mind understands to something that your body understands. And secondly, and more importantly, all of life really comes down to our mind dictating to our body what to do, not to follow our goof. If we're just going to do what our bodies want, then we're no different than an animal. When we take a step back and we allow our bodies to not give in to what they want, but to say, you know what, I'm thinking about it, it's not good for me. I'm choosing to not eat. I'm choosing to not talk. I'm choosing to not respond. I'm choosing to not get back. When I choose to not, I'm living according to my best self, to my angelic self. Okay? We'll stop over here, everybody. God should bless us and help us to always be able to control our temptations, to be master over our bodies, Be'ezrat Hashem, to guide the animal within, and to make it only a vehicle to really allow the soul to do what it does best. Be'ezrat Hashem. We'll stop over here, everybody. Have a wonderful day. God willing, we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.